I'm David Adams, CEO of the Urban Assembly, and I'm here to talk to you about the idea of community. You see, before COVID, and really before I had kids, I was known to travel all over the world. And I wasn't one to go to resorts. Not that there's anything wrong with that. No, if at all possible, I try to get off the beaten path to the best of my ability. And in these travels, I'd inevitably run into another American, and a sort of ritual would occur. First, we start out with what states we're from. And if that wasn't a hit, states that we had visited. And if that didn't hit, one last ditch effort, states we wanted to visit. And by the end of that ritual, we'd almost always find enough in common to buy each other a drink. It's not just traveling, it happens with veterans as well. Whenever I'd had the pleasure of running into a veteran, they'd ask me where I took basic. And you could tell the folks were old school because they would ask you where you took basic versus where you went to basic. And on we went until we could find a common branch, deployment, posting, or special school. Sometimes it was as simple as having been the same rank at some point. That was good enough for a shared drink. Turns out it's not just me who tries to make connections with folks in order to find community. In his book, The World Until Yesterday, Jared Diamond describes the Kung tribe in Southern Africa who, when traveling across territories of a rival group, participate in a long ritual in which they try to find a common relative within that rival group in order to find a reason not to fight. While this process is aided by the frequent intermarriage of women in the community, it can sometimes take hours to achieve a peaceful outcome. Nonetheless, it describes the power of a shared narrative to connect us. When we realize our connections, it's not so easy to harm each other as strangers. How do we take this energy into our day-to-day interactions? There's an idea that we're hopelessly divided, that our differences are far more important than our commonalities, that no amount of discourse can help us find common ground, see the common good. But I've seen enough of the world to know that's not true. I know that when we can create the energy to fuel our narratives, there's no limit to the size of the communities we can imagine. So where does this energy come from and how do we harness it? Well, first we have to nurture our curiosity. What's an American accent doing in Maidstone, England, or Antigua, Guatemala, in my own example? Curiosity in ourselves brings out the stories of others. It's in these stories we find connection and community. It's our curiosity that sparks our questions and that opens us up to listening to the answers. A curious mind remains a prerequisite to an open mind. Tell me your story. Next, like a veteran or a Kung people in Southern Africa, we have to want to understand. We have to want to connect. And there are myriad reasons why people can be apart, but only so many reasons for us to find connection. A couple of years ago, I was traveling to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, when my car's muffler had an issue in Virginia. I pulled over and a patrolman came up behind me. Seeing my military gear, he asked me where I was going, and I explained my destination. He called a local tow truck / mechanic. He knew him by name, of course, and he took me through some pitch dark roads, opened up his garage at 8 p.m. at night, and repaired my car right then and there so I could get back on the road and make first formation. He wanted to connect. It's interesting, this notion of connection. Some people see it as a vulnerability, as it requires a risk. In fact, my wife routinely accuses me of being far too trusting. And whether it's my time in the service or the quality of people I have in my life, I've been rarely disappointed when I put my faith in people. It's the courage to trust that solidifies the bonds in my life. It's a leap of faith, nothing more. To stay uncomfortable, to choose the experiences that push my understanding of who I am and who I can be. To allow the perspectives of others to nuance and refine my own thinking. In the face of fear of mistakes, fear of condemnation, fear of ridicule, to build community, we must choose to overcome this fear. We must choose to be brave. We must choose the action. Because action is the last of the principles that will bring us into community, that give us the energy to remain in the communities that we've already forged. None of us can do everything, but every one of us can do something. When faced with an unknown gap between us and another person, another group of people, the shortest distance is a straight line. Host a neighbor, have a difficult conversation, buy a stranger a drink. We can all do things that build community. And it starts with one act. What will it be for you? For me, it's about reapplying myself to these ideas. Be curious, listen to understand, be brave, and take action. That's what I'm doing here today. I'm taking action in the hopes that I can inspire you to do the same. Taking action in the hopes that you'll inspire others to do the same. Rekindle their curiosity about what's possible as a community. Imagine all the progress we've made and what possibilities still lie ahead because of people just like you. I'm taking action to remind myself that everyone has something to teach us. We just have to figure out what it is. We have to listen in order to find out. A deep, energetic listening that serves to build bridges and build bonds. Everyone has something for us to connect to if we reapply ourselves to the task of uncovering it. I'm taking action to remind you to be brave. Each of us needs to tap into that deep well of resilience and face the world in all its uncertainties and nuances and choose bravery over fear. Because that's the collective action that will change our neighborhoods, our communities, our country, our world. And even if we're not entirely successful at such an ambitious goal, at least we may have gotten a shared drink out of it. So on behalf of the Urban Assembly and me personally, thank you for who you are and what you bring to the world. I look forward to the community we build together.